I was reading a great verse last night. I forgot the book, but it was basically saying that in whatever setting, I think it was Paul, he was saying, in whatever setting you were called, remain in that setting. Even if, as a slave, you may help bring your master to Christ.
Yep.
And I am reminded of, I just recently came back from Washington, D.C., and I've alluded to people about how, as the head of Turning Point Australia, Charlie Kirk's organization in the US, Turning Point USA, how much that brand helped me network while I was there, and how I got a number of very tempting job offers when I was there. And it really makes you wrestle. The first time of security in a while for me, having lost my I won't get into it, but having lost my dad through the pandemic and lost my job, career, family decimated from what had happened, and then being offered for the first time in a long time security, I had to wrestle with it and be like, God, what is this about? And that feeling of, now hang on, he called an Australian, he called you, he who much has been given, much will be expected. And I see that very much. You are living your purpose when you're on the streets covering cost of living, housing crisis, the Acai wars, a number of other things. I think it's incredibly admirable because I can only imagine the level of temptation and options in front of you, what you could do.
Yeah. Never gone down the OnlyFans route, never will. So you know.
Your feet don't go for very good rates?
My feet actually don't. They've got a few like weird Asian hairs on the back of them, so I can't really monetize that too well.
There's not much of a niche market for that.
That's right.
You mentioned your spiritual journey and your brush with, could we touch on the brush with the demonic, the demonic world?
Sure.
So how did you obviously engage, you're getting a lot of views online. You're brushing, there's the bit of the drug culture. There's a bit of, obviously you're getting a lot of attention. I understand, the amount of people that, when you're getting a lot of views, a lot of women, they love being close to power or close to relevance or whatever.
Yep.
How did that then get you into the demonic? Because a lot of people will be like, hang on, I don't quite make the link. How did that happen?
So it was interesting because from a young age, I was brought up by my mum, who was a single parent, amazing mother. She was kind of always more agnostic, you could say. She was christened Anglican when she was younger, but didn't really follow Christ in the way in which a Christian would. And so she always taught me that, hey, there is definitely the universe out there. There's a spiritual world beyond the physical that we see. And so I was always very open-minded towards that. And it kind of stemmed earlier from the social media, if I'm honest, this kind of lifestyle I began to try and live, where I believe that it was because when my dad, this is turning into a therapy session, but when my dad left the family at 4 years old and my parents got divorced, I perceived my dad leaving as I wasn't good enough for him to stay. So my entire life, I basically was trying to seek validation from external places like people, through money, fame, girls, and all these things. And it was interesting because I ended up trying to pursue a professional footballing career, soccer for those in Australia. And that was for about 9 years during my high schooling. So I'd be going up the ranks, the rep levels here. I was playing for Northern Tigers, Rockdale, for those of you guys out there that may know those teams. And what was funny was that initially I just had this obsession from soccer when the Socceroos qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 32 years in 2006. How old are you?
Yes.
I don't know, 28?
That bang on. I just turned 28 a month ago.
There you go.
Go on. So we qualified in 06. I was in year 4 or something. But
yes. And I was in like year 7, I think, or 6.
Right.
And I just remember there was this spark within me that was like, that's what I want to do. Funnily enough, I'd always played soccer as a kid. I was in like the worst division for the last 8 years or so. And all I knew about soccer was to kick the ball towards the goal. That's it. So I gained this obsession. And I started going to Chatswood every single day for hours, just being obsessed with the game. I found Ronaldo, I found Tim Cahill, and those guys were my idols. And so I thought to myself, wow, like I truly love this game. I found my passion and my purpose. And bro, I'll be honest with you, I got so incredibly good. I went from being able to juggle a ball 3 times to then 1,000 only a few months later.
Wow.
I went from the worst division of like, you can call it Sunday League in Australia, to then the 3rd tier representative state league in like 6 to 12 months. And it was crazy. It was phenomenal. And I was like, wow, like, I didn't believe in God at this point, but I was like, the universe has blessed me with this skill in soccer. So yeah, man, it was like during the school holidays, started practicing, got so good, went back to school. Yeah. Everyone's like, who is this guy? Like, what drugs is he taking? Yeah. I would get the ball from the freaking goalkeeper, beat everyone on the team and score multiple times a game. It was nuts. I can't describe it in words. I was like, cool. So what I like about this game is the game for itself, but what I also like is the validation that I receive from being a professional, being famous, being rich, and all these things. So what ended up happening was I then became known as a soccer kid. And during this time, I started to develop a really strong sense of anxiety and specifically performance anxiety, where I had these experiences, especially in those higher leagues where I was playing in, Rockdale City Suns, which is a full Macedonian team. I'm some little Asian kid from Chatswood, skinny, like completely different to these guys. And it was just a culture shock that led me into this really bad spiral. And so during this spiral, I was still at high school, and I was like, what's wrong with me? I'm such a good player, but now I can't perform all of a sudden. It's like I'm bipolar. I've turned into some alien that just can't perform. And so that's when I started seeking the spiritual. I said to my mum, what's wrong with me? What do you think I need to do? And she was always my biggest supporter. She'd drive me to all these rep games in, Whoop Whoop out in New South Wales and Blue Mountains, Canberra. And she was with me like 24/7. She was great to have there, but I also didn't have that father figure that was able to say, no, like participation medal isn't good enough. You can do it. Like you're worthy of doing this and you're strong enough. I never had that.
Yeah.
In fact, my dad from China was always like, nah, you're not good at soccer. Like, don't even bother. So I had all these things going on and all these conflicts. So then I started dabbling in things that I don't want to say my mum got me into them, but I guess considering she was massively into health, organic health, and she had cured her Crohn's disease when I was 4 years old from natural medicine, which Crohn's disease is incurable as per se through the doctors. She was massively in that movement, organic, vegan stuff. So naturally the progression, is to start, seeking spiritual guidance. And so I started going to these kind of like breath work people, like spiritual breathwork practitioners. And what they'd get me to do is they'd get me to like lie on a mat and start breathing in a certain way to sort of activate something within me to then connect to the spiritual and then heal past trauma is what they used to call it. And I was seeing this guy in Sydney for like many, many years. And, I guess in therapy, like I have a very different viewpoint of this whole thing now. But back then it was like, all right, there's different layers to, your trauma and what you've been through and that sort of thing. And it's all about, getting rid of each layer and seeing what's beneath it. But there was almost like never an end goal. It was almost like you do it, you feel better for a bit, something else comes up. Okay, cool, deal with this. Go to that for 6 months and then something else.
Like a mole almost, yeah.
Yeah, so there was never like any permanent fulfillment that I experienced. It was always like, all right, I'm doing this and then back to square one. Ironically, when I went to these people for spiritual help, my lifestyle during that time was getting into the kind of like playboy lifestyle. Like I was sleeping around a lot, I was partying, I was doing drugs, I was drinking. And what was interesting is that in the New Age movement, people will never tell you what you're doing is wrong. There was never any morality. It was like, if you believe this is you, if you feel emotionally like it's the right thing to do, that's just you living life. That's just you being your higher self. And it was weird because the more they told me this, the more it confirmed that what I was doing was okay. I didn't have anyone in my life tell me that, hey, you probably shouldn't sleep around that much. You probably shouldn't do this. It might be bad for you. No one. And so this led me down even more of a spiral to the point where I was seeing so many people. I went to a hypnotherapist. I started doing astral projecting. I turned vegan. I started doing these meditations all the time. I started working with crystals. I started charging my crystals in the moonlight. I went that deep into everything.
Tarot cards.
Yeah, tarot cards.
All of it, yeah.
Everything that I ended up just so lost and broken and unfulfilled. And this was also when I had been doing social media. I was already in the spotlight. I already had all the money, the fame, the girls, and all that sort of stuff. But I was still so broken. So it was like, why? I've got everything I've ever dreamed of. Why am I still like this? And I guess the pivotal moment for me where my spiritual journey towards God started, to kind of answer your question, is when I did a Reiki healing session in March 2021. Sorry if this is getting a bit long, by the way. It's just a very...
No, mate, I asked for it and you come to the right place, Imagine you've got a bunch of women that are like your mum's age. They're like, oh, no, go on, honey, go on.
Okay, great. And older women have better attention spans.
Yeah.
Because they're not so consumed by TikTok brain as Gen Z is.
That's it.
All right, cool. So basically, so I've been in social media for maybe 5 to 8 years at this point, and I've experienced everything. I've gone overseas, meet and greets, like just everything that a guy could ever want, essentially, and also a lot of women these days. And I'm like, why? Like, I've got it all. Like, everyone's envious of me. Everyone's, trying to use me for things. I just have what I need to, what I've always aspired to have. But why do I still feel so broken and depressed and anxious, and I have chronic OCD and I've got all these things? And I was actually seeing this girl in Melbourne in early 2021. So I used to go to and from Sydney, Melbourne. And I'll be honest with you, I used to go to Melbourne to escape, just to party and just, try and mask all my problems. And so I said to this girl, hey, I've been going through some really weird stuff recently. Like, my OCD's gotten crazy. I feel like I'm more depressed, more anxious, and all these things. And she goes, oh, have you ever heard of something called Reiki healing? And I go, I've heard of it. I actually tried to do a session a few months ago, but I didn't get to do it. So what is it? And she goes, oh, there's actually this woman in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. She's really great. My family and I have been seeing her for years. And her Reiki is so powerful that when we go into sessions, often at times, all the car alarms in the street go off because of the power of the spiritual that she's blessed with. And me being naive, I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing. She must be able to, solve all my problems.
Let's fang it. Like, what could go wrong?
Exactly. And I'll be honest with you, bro, this is a whole 3-hour story. But essentially what happened was...
Please go for that, man. Honestly, go as deep or as little as deep as you want. It's totally up to you.
Okay, we'll see where God leads us.
We've given me a hard finish, and I'll just chat, honestly. This is the tone.
Okay, sure, yeah. I'll just get guidance from the Holy Spirit as to how much we should go.
That's right.
So yeah, I basically did this session, bro, and essentially what happened was I I can't reveal all the details. I will one day in like a full-on documentary, but essentially I changed, bro. I completely walked out of that space a different person. How I walked into that house and how I walked out were just completely 180. Like I was just not me. So I started experiencing these weird demonic thoughts. I started having this like weird force stabbing me in the heart and also in like the lower regions. I started having these voices tell me to kill myself. I developed a heart problem. At 28 years old, I had these just horrible like thoughts just bombard me, which weren't mine. And I tried everything, bro. I tried more New Age. I tried the conventional therapy route. No one knew what was wrong with me. And my mom, like, she's been with me through everything, right? And she was so baffled. And it was weird because, like, she's, the person that I love the most in this world. Obviously, my dad's up there as well. But it's like, during this time, something was so strange within me that I wanted to, like, put pain on her. Not physically, but more so, like, emotionally. So every morning I'd wake up and say, Mom, I'm going to kill myself today. Ha, ha, ha. And it was just a very demonic year, you could call it, where I personally had no idea what was going on. But now looking back, I'm like, whoa, like the way I was acting was so, demon orchestrated, to the point where, I almost, took my own life as well. And it's funny because people ask me like, oh, Reiki generally is a pretty safe modality. I know plenty of people that have used Reiki for healing problems and physical, mental, emotional. And it's been amazing. Maybe you just got a bad woman. But if you actually look into the origins of Reiki and where it stems from back in the 1900s, you'll know that it's actually stemmed from a very demonic place. So I wouldn't say I had it any worse than other people that did Reiki. It was more so just my symptoms were very, very obvious and congruent with something demonic happening. So that whole year was horrible. I was looking for answers no one could tell me. And it was a very complicated time where many things happened, and it's almost like I can't even tell you in order of what happened first. But essentially what happened was I got invited to church after about 10 months of going through this. And I was very, very anti-Jesus my whole life. I didn't know why. Now I do. And even when I would see street preachers, I'd be like, oh, this guy's trying to push religion down everyone's throats. I used to cuss out Jesus. I even remember in about 2018, I had a Christian friend. I used to mock Jesus in front of him, like blaspheme. And I thought nothing was wrong with it. So my mate goes, oh, come to church with us. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, I've been to a Catholic school. I know what this is all about. But fine. I was in like my point of desperation where I had to do something. Nothing was a net negative, essentially. And it was interesting, man, because I went to church for the first time, and I walk into this building in Melbourne, and I was like, why are you taking me into an office building? And she goes, oh, no, this is the church. I'm like, what? I'm like, I went to Catholic church. Is this in the church? Bro, I kid you not. This church was called Planet Shakers in Melbourne. A lot of you guys might know it out there. The moment the doors open and I step foot in that auditorium, I kid you not, I had the most insane spiritual, supernatural encounter I've ever had in my entire life. Something just flung into me. And it was like this supernatural presence where it was the most comforting, peaceful feeling I've ever experienced in my entire life. And this feeling was then followed by, audibly I could hear three things said to me. It was that this is where you belong, these are your people, and this is where you're going to get healed. And I just start weeping. I didn't know what was going on. And I start crying, and I'm like, what is happening right now? And I go to the front, I watch the sermon, I'm just bawling my eyes out the whole time. I don't know why. And then at the end of that, they ask, they do the salvation altar call. I put my hand straight up, get saved on the spot, and man, the rest is history. I just became a full-on Christian since that day, and I never looked back. So that's a bit of a summary of, I guess, my life for you.
Praise God.